Anya Hashimnika, Selamat Petang, good afternoon. When Mr. Shin approached me to be involved with this talk, and he emphasized and stressed that it's the first that is going to be held where female ambassadors are invited, and the topic is up to us to choose. I choose this topic even though I have to declare that I'm not an expert on women issues, nor am I an authority on women issue, but the issue is very close to heart. The objective of my lecture is an attempt to provide a brief overview about women issues in Malaysia in terms of their rights and achievements as far, national policy on women, the current and future challenges. Now, before I begin the lecture, I would like to share certain quotation, which I believe is good. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, I'm sure everybody knows him. No nation can ever be worthy of its existence that cannot take its women along with the men. No struggle can ever succeed without women participating side by side with men. There are two powers in the world. One is the sword and the other is the pen. There is a great competition and rivalry between the two. There is a third power, stronger than both, and that is of the woman. The lecture outline is as shown on the slide, but I've added one in between women in public service and the 30% agenda, where I thought that information on women in the education in my country would be also good to talk about. So the topic is added between women in public service and the 30% agenda. The next slide will show you the faces of Malaysian women. We are heterogeneous, so there is no one face that you can call Malaysian because we are off from different ethnics, and you can see that on the slide. Next is the first topic, an overview of Malaysia. Malaysia practices constitutional monarchy. It is a federation of 13 states and one federal territory, but the federal territory have three components. It has Kuala Lumpur, Putrajaya, and Labuan. 9 out of the 13 states have sultans. 4 have governors, that is Penang, Malacca, Sabah, and Sarawak. The Malaysian head of state is known as Yang di-Pertuan Agong, or literally translated as the paramount ruler. And he's elected among the 9 sultans for a 5-year term. The Malaysian head of government is the Prime Minister, elected by the general election, and that is held by every 5 years. I have to have this overview because many confuse my country being a republic, because they sometimes ask, who's the president of Malaysia? We don't have a president, we have a prime minister, and the head of state is the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Now, the next slide will show the current Malaysian population, which is estimated to be 31.7 million. Women population is 48.26%, and men is 51.73%. As I said before, it's very heterogeneous. There are many ethnics. 3 major ethnics are Bumiputra. Bumiputras include Malay, I'm a Malay, Chinese, and Indians. Percentage-wise, is Bumiputras, there's 68.6%, Chinese 23.4%, and the Indian 7%. I also, in this slide, in slide 7, I think, shows the population age of between 15 to 64 years old, 69.4%. This is the category of the labor market. Next topic is legislation as regards to women, those which has been reviewed and amended. The rights of Malaysian women as citizens are implicitly recognized and guaranteed by the Malaysian Federal Constitution. Article 8.2 of the Federal Constitution read as what is shown in the slide. The amendments to the article were made to express prohibition of discrimination on the ground of gender. Many of the legislation were reviewed and new laws promulgated to preserve, reinforce, and protect the rights of women. Some of these legislation are as shown in the slide. The revision of the Employment Act. The Act was amended in 2012 to include provision to address sexual harassment issues at workplace. There's amendment to the income tax to provide an option for married women to have separate income tax assessment. Amendments to the Penal Code to enhance penalties for offences relating to prostitution, also to enhance penalties for rape. Enactment of the Domestic Violence Act to provide protection for battered wife. Luckily, we don't have battered husband. Do we have battered husband? Maybe we have to have a law for that. And other victims of domestic violence and implementation, and that was done in 1996. Abolishment of immigration regulation, which discriminate against Malaysian women married to foreigners. The foreign men married to Malaysian women are now allowed to renew their social visit pass every 6 months until they gain employment. Next topic is about national policy on women. We have that policy established in 1989, and essentially it articulates the government commitment towards facilitating women participation in the social and economic life of the country. The overall objective is as shown in the slide, to ensure equitable sharing in the acquisition of resources and information, as well as access to opportunities and benefits of development for both men and women, and to integrate women in all sectors of national development in line with their abilities and needs in order to improve the quality of life, eradicate poverty, abolish ignorance, illiteracy, and ensure a peaceful and prosperous nation. The next slides will show the plan of action for the advancement of women in 1997. It was drafted then, and these plans was reviewed and approved by the government in July 2009, and the objective shown in the slide, it addresses 13 areas. In terms of history, the setup of the department under the Ministry of Labour, known as the Department of Women Affairs, was responsible for the coordination of the development of women. In 1978, this department was transferred to the Implementation Coordination Unit under the Prime Minister Department. And then in 1983, it was renamed as Secretariat for Women Affairs and then transferred to another division under the Prime Minister Department. It was then transferred to the former Ministry of National Unity and Social Development, and only in 2001, when the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development was established, it was placed under this newly established ministry and until now. And by 2002, HAWA have branches in every state of Malaysia. Now, in 1976, the government also had set up what is known as the National Advisory Council on the Integration of Women in Development, acronym as NASIWID, as the machinery to ensure the involvement of women in development. It acts as the main body through which women-related bodies are channeled to relevant authorities and plans and evaluate activities of women organizations. Women issues in the Malaysian National Development Plan. Malaysia has a 5-year national plan that National Development Plan. And Malaysia has included women issues in the Malaysia 5-year national plan since the 4th Malaysian plan under the chapter 24. In the 6th national plan, a full chapter was given or dedicated to policies and programs to promote women in development. It has stated, among others, the government also recognizes that specific strategies must necessarily be formulated to effectively incorporate women in the process of development. Towards this end, concerted efforts will be made to progressively reduce existing constraints and facilitate the assimilation of women into the mainstream social and economic activity. In the 10th Malaysia National Plan, that is from 2011 until last year, 2015, the focus given on women issue is women in economic development, specifically to increase female labor participation rate from the 46% in 2010 to 55% in 2015. It was also the government had aimed to increase the number of women in key decision positions. In the 11th National Plan, which is starting from this year until the year 2020, the objective about increasing female participation rate is to continue, and a new target was set that by 2020, we should have 59% of female participation in the workforce. Now, back in 1970, the participation rate for women in the workforce was only 37.2%. In terms of achievement thus far, yes, you can see that in 2008 it was 45.7%, 2011 47.9%, 2013 52.4%, 2014 53.6%. Now, in 2015, as I had mentioned before, the target was 55%, but we only managed 54.1%, just a little bit under the target set. Women in national labor force. I would like to quote what the former US Secretary of State had mentioned before. If we close the gap in workforce participation between women and men around the world, GDP would grow by nearly 12% by 2030. According to the Department of Statistics, Malaysia, in June 2015, the total labor force for Malaysia is 14.5 million. The definition of labor force is, like I mentioned much earlier, that it's 15 to 64 years old. The labor participation in 2015 was 67.9% of the total working age population. By gender, the participation rate for male labor force is 80.6% and female was 54.1%. In June 2016, the statistic, there is 14.72 million in terms of, that is labor force. In terms of labor participation rate for both genders was recorded at 67.7%. However, the breakdown for men and female participation rate for 2014, that is not out yet. But looking at the total labor force, I should not think there will be any huge difference from the figure 2015 and 2016. Now, the government recognizes the importance of increasing the rate of women's participation in labor force and to ensure that they continue to remain in the labor force. Basically, it is about women's equality in the workforce of the country. In 2011, the participation rate, as mentioned before, was only 47.9. The government had set a target for 2015 to be increased 55%. And as I mentioned just now that it was not achieved, it was only achieved 54.1%. In order to encourage women to participate in the labor force and for them to continue working after marriage or continue to sustain their job, an enabling environment should be created. The government has undertaken various measures, and these measures include encouraging establishment of child care center at workplace by introducing incentive. An amount of more than 45,000 US has been allocated to any ministry or agency to establish child care centers at the workplace. Tax exemption incentives are also provided to set up child care centers at workplace. To ease the burden of financial burden of civil servants from the low-income group by providing child care fee subsidy for parents with household income of below 700 USD. Enactment of employment regulation to allow women to enter labor market on part-time basis. Extending maternity leave for civil servants from 60 to 90 days. Introducing a career comeback program to encourage women to return to the job market who have been on career breaks for more than 6 months. Under this program, financial incentive in the form of grants were provided to companies. There are two kinds of grants, the resourcing grant and the retention grant. The resourcing grant is made available for companies that have implemented programs to recruit women returnees. Meanwhile, the retention grant is made available for companies who have successfully recruited and retained women returnees for more than 6 months. Now, beside the above measures, the government has also, through its agency, Talent Corporation Malaysia, created a portal named flexworklife.my. This portal, which was launched in July 2013, aims to build a network of employers and talents to optimize work-life integration while maximizing work efficiency and enhancing employee engagement. Among the interesting features in the portal are the networks available between employers and employees, the successful case studies of those who have implemented the flexible working arrangement, the job opportunities, as well as the incentives provided by the government for companies who manage to bring back women to the force. In terms of flexible working arrangement, showing by example, the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development had introduced the arrangement since March 2015. Employees are allowed to select whether to work from home, to choose flexible hours, or a modified compressed work week. The Parliament of Malaysia consists of Senate, or upper house, and the House of Representatives, the lower house. In the upper house, which comprises of senators, 26 of which elected by State Legislative Assembly and another 44 appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong on advice of the Prime Minister, there are only 13 women senators. In terms of percentage, that's 20.3%. Meanwhile, in the lower house, whereby representatives are elected and each represent a parliamentary constituency, only 10.8% or 24 are women representatives, and this is out of 222 total representatives. Now, after Malaysia gained independence, the first Malaysian woman to be appointed as the minister was Fatimah Haji Hashim, who was then the Malaysian Minister for Welfare. Then, in those days, women tend to be appointed as ministers that are deemed suitable to be held by women, such as Ministries of Women and Family Development. The woman minister that breaks this norm is Minister Rafida Aziz, who was appointed as the Minister of International Trade and Industry in 1987 and continued to hold that position for more than 2 decades. This slide shows the 3 ministers in the Prime Minister, in the cabinet. 2 of these ministers are in the Prime Minister department. One of the minister handles legal issue or law issues, and the other, it takes care of the innovative agency as well as issues on nuclear plant. These are the deputy ministers. We have 6 deputy ministers. I have to elaborate here. The deputy ministers in the case of Malaysia is not the same position as the deputy minister for the Republic of Korea. In our case, the deputy ministers are held by politicians. In the case of the Republic of Korea, the equivalent in Malaysia is the Deputy Secretary General position, and that is normally held by a civil servant. Women in public service, next topic. The total number of employees in the civil service as recorded by the Public Service Department is about 1.6 million, which include federal public service, state public services, joint public services, the judiciary, the legal service, the police, and armed forces. We have a system where data is collected, data on the civil servant, and as of 17 August 20 this year, information of only about 1.2 civil servant was recorded, and out of these, 57.21% are women. While there are more women civil servants than men, many are holding lower position. Only 35.62% women civil servants are holding position at high management level. In total, we have 24 federal ministries and 1 Prime Minister's department. Out of this, we only have 5 Secretary General, which is in Republic of Korea is Vice Minister's position. And percentage-wise is only 20.8%. The ministries is as reflected in the slide. Focusing on Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is where I come from, women or female officers perform the same duties and responsibility as the male officers in accordance with their areas of responsibility and expertise. Female officers have the right and opportunity to represent the government at various international fora. In terms of training as well, they are given equal opportunities for training at various local and foreign institutions to enhance their professional and management skill. Only in the terms of abroad assignment, female officers are not assigned to certain posts. This is due to host country's culture. It should not be seen as a discrimination practice. Rather, the action taken is to give due respect to the host country's culture and sensitiveness. The overall strength of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs by gender and in percentages as shown in the slide, male officers is only 62.94%, female officers 37.05%. Even though it's 37, I must say that is quite an increase, because in 2002, that's 14 years gap, there was only about 20.7% of the in the ministry where there are female officers. In terms of management level, the statistics are as follows. At high management level, there's 18.33%, at mid-management level, 22.36%, and at lower management level, 49.46%. There are 13 head of missions are at ambassador rank. I mean, there are 13 ambassadors, put it that way. And one, I think I have a typo mistake there. One is at ambassador rank, but she is based at the capital. She is one of the deputy ministers level. One head of mission as consul general. Malaysia has yet to have a female minister of foreign affairs, as well as a female secretary general of the ministry. Female officers' achievement in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs thus far is only up to the Deputy Secretary General level. The position also as well is only for the management services and for the multilateral affairs issue. It's the most vital factor in women empowerment. Better educated women would translate into more economically productive and intellectually vibrant society that would eventually contribute to the development of the country. Under the Malaysian Constitution, all Malaysians have equal rights to education. That is to say, Malaysian investment in the education field has no gender discrimination. The Malaysia literacy rate is 94.6. As shown, male is 96.2, female is 93.2%. What is interesting is that the female undergraduate university enrollment, in 1959, there was only 10.7% of the total enrollment of the university was female. But it was reported in the Malaysian media for this year, female students make up 70% out of 39,862 places offered, outnumbering male students. In the public sector, in 2004, the decision about making target for 30% decision-making position in the public sector, that was announced in 2004. Achievement in 2016, it was 35.62%. So we have achieved in the public sector. However, in the corporate sector, we're still below target because what I found out, it's only 15% as of 2015. I don't have the figure for 2016. Next topic is under other issues. I just want to flag that Malaysia did involve itself in the Beijing declaration of Beijing Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing. In fact, the head of delegation then had stated the fact that we are meeting at the Fourth World Conference affirms our commitment and preparedness to change the platform for action, which is a mean for us to operationalize the commitment to lead to a fundamental change. The Malaysian government is committed to equal rights and responsibility, equal opportunities, and equal participation of women and men. We are actively participating in CSW. In terms of inequality, gender inequality index, as well as a global gender gap, is as shown in the slide. I sincerely believe that Malaysia has made remarkable achievement in women's rights. The role and status of women in Malaysia have indeed undergone tremendous change in many areas. And why is this so? I think that the government has given its full commitment. And also, the current Prime Minister has also pushed the women agenda forward. In fact, our Prime Minister had said that when women succeed, we all succeed. And he went on to say that women are crucial to the health and prosperity of the government, of the nation. However, despite the achievement, there are still opportunities and room for further enhancement and improvement. For example, gender inequality still exists in economics and political sphere. Prevalence of customary and traditional practices about women's role that influence women in decision-making choices between career and family. Presence of stereotyping and having fixed gender mindset. Both genders must continue to change the fixed mindset of certain groups of people on what role women should be assuming. Only when this mindset experiences the full change, then only women can go beyond and achieve the true equal partnership in all fields. In the context of women in decision-making position in corporate sector, for example, even though there are quite a number of top corporate position and public leadership are held by women, it's still not enough. The Prime Minister himself is aware, and he has stated that more could be done. In this regard, he had announced that starting from this year, 2016, it is mandatory for public listed companies to disclose in their annual report the gender representation of their board members and key senior management. The element of sustainability and continuous reviewing and upgrading of the status of women are also important. Otherwise, I feel that all efforts and achievements thus far would be wasted. Thank you for your attention.